are the New York Knicks. We are the New York Knicks. Say go New York, go New York, go. Go New York, go New York, go. Say go New York, go New York, go. Go New York, go New York, go.
Yo, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Knicks Pod. I'm your co-host, Josh Byrne, and I'm joined alongside, as always, by the one, the only, the great Connor Thompson. And Connor, we actually have some basketball to talk about. Yes, real basketball games. They may not be the sexiest version of NBA action, but let alone all that, they are still real NBA games. Connor, how you doing? And did you watch either of these Summer League games from this past weekend?
Well, I'm doing well, Josh. Thank you. And I did get a chance to watch a little bit of the Summer League. I only watched about a quarter of it, maybe 12 minutes of game time, but I didn't really see anything too great from our team, to be honest. The only player that really stood out was Jeffries, Daquan Jeffries. I saw him make 2 layups, I guess. He had a 3-pointer. I saw that in the stats that popped up. And no one on our team was shooting well from 3-point range. And one of the guys I was really excited to watch was Trevor Keels, because he's a second-round pick from the draft last season, and he's a second-year player, so I was really hoping to see more from him, but he did not stand out at all. He really let me down, and it's still early in the Summer League. There's still more games to be played, so a lot could change, but as of right now, I'm not really set on anyone from the Summer League. No one's really shown great basketball yet.
Yeah, I don't really think we're watching the Summer League for great basketball. You know, you mentioned those guys, and it's fun when you see a player stand out in these Summer League games, but let's be honest, man, you could tell the difference right away. It's night and day from watching an NBA game. You know, you're talking about Daquan Jeffries. You know, we're going to be talking about Trevor Keels, Isaiah Roby. These aren't exactly frontline NBA stars, but nonetheless, you know, if you're a diehard Knicks fan like we are, then even these 2 Summer League games out in Las Vegas, out in that huge giant sphere, that, you know, it gets our attention, man, and you never know, one of these players could at some point or the other make an impact for the Knicks. So, of course, we'll talk more about the Summer League games. We'll get into some of the standout players that you mentioned, and then we'll do a position profile on the Knicks center position. That's kind of something that, Connor, we haven't really talked about much. You know, Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, and Isaiah Hartenstein. You know, those are guys that in the first 2 episodes we didn't talk a lot about, but we'll get to that today. And then finally, we'll finish it up with our thoughts on the NBA Cup, the mid-season tournament, the in-season tournament that Adam Silver has been dreaming of is finally here. It has finally come to fruition. And me and Connor are going to give you our thoughts on that. So, getting to the Summer League, as you mentioned, Daquan Jeffries went off. Game 1, it resulted in a 110-101 loss for the New York Knicks to the Philadelphia 76ers. But Daquan Jeffries, you know, it was a bad game for the Knicks, but he definitely stood out. You know, he had 20 points on 7 of 14 shooting. And this is a guy who, you know, he's had some experience in the NBA. He's played some games, especially for the Sacramento Kings and eventually for the Houston Rockets, and last year for the Memphis Grizzlies. Hasn't played a ton, but nonetheless, you know, this is a guy who has proven that maybe he's a little too good for the G League and maybe not quite good enough yet, has not solidified himself yet at the NBA level, but certainly watching that Knicks game, Game 1 against the Sixers, not fun. It's kind of impressive that you made it as long as you did, but just watching the highlights, man, 19 turnovers, 19. They had 19 turnovers compared to 3 3-pointers made on 19 attempts. And that's really all you need to know about that. You know, it started off head-to-head. It was competitive. It was a really close game early on, and then it just kind of fell apart. Not a great game by the Knicks. And frankly, as tough as it was to watch, outside of the fact that it was an ugly game, there really isn't much to take away. And Game 2 is kind of the same, Connor. I mean, yeah, it really kind of was.
18 turnovers.
18 turnovers. So I guess one takeaway is they were consistent in their first 2 Summer League games.
Yeah.
You got the 19 turnovers in Game 1, and you got the 18 turnovers in Game 2, which was a 98-90 loss to the Brooklyn Nets. In that game, Daquan Jeffries didn't play. He was a coach's decision not to play. So instead, we saw some other players stand out, especially in that second game, and that includes Isaiah Roby, who had a very nice game against the Brooklyn Nets. He really stepped it up. But overall, kind of the same formula in which they lost. They were slightly better from three in game two, but still didn't shoot the ball all too well. They turned the ball over a ton. And this part of the season, analyzing these summer league games, it's really about looking at these guys right there on the margins, right there, who haven't quite made a name for themselves in the association, but are trying, they're fighting their damnedest to make their way onto the Knicks roster. So, through these two games, you mentioned some of those names right there. Daquan Jeffries, of course, a big part of that. For me, the biggest names that I've taken away from these two games, Isaiah Roby, Daquan Jeffries, even Charlie Brown Jr. has also definitely put up some numbers. Do you think any of those guys has a chance to make an impact for the Knicks this season?
Well, I think the only one would be Isaiah Roby, just because, he actually has put together a solid NBA career so far. He used to be at OKC, and, he was averaging 5 rebounds in his second season, 5 rebounds again in his third, so he's shown that he could be a good rebounder when he gets the minutes. It's not like he's playing a lot of minutes either. He's only playing 20 minutes in these seasons. So he's shown already that he's a proven NBA player that could make the rotation on our team. And with the Obi Toppin departure, someone's got to step up. And I really think Isaiah Roby probably will be the backup power forward. Because, who else do we have right now? Jacob Toppin? I don't know. It's going to be, I guess, someone's going to have to fight for that spot. And I think Isaiah Roby right now has the lead way.
I'd have to agree with you right there. You mentioned Jacob Toppin. Unfortunately for Toppin, though, even though we talked about him at length in the last episode, he's injured right now. So he's not even playing in the summer league, man. So this opens up the door for a guy like Isaiah Roby. And Isaiah Roby, compared to any other prospect, compared to any other potential candidate to fill that role that is now left void with the departure of Obi Toppin, he has to be the number one candidate right now. He has experience, man. And one thing that caught my eye with Isaiah Roby is back in the 21-22 season, this is a guy who averaged over 20 minutes played per game at the NBA level in 45 games. And he averaged over 10 points in those 28 games started and 45 games played altogether, 10.1 points. He's shown the ability to occasionally hit a three. He took about 2.2 threes per those 21 minutes in the 21-22 season, and he made 44% of them.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
It's really impressive.
That's
and
really good.
I'm not saying Isaiah Roby's a sharpshooter by any means, but when you look at the kind of player that you want to come in and appropriately fill that spot that Obi left behind, it would be nice to get a power forward who can occasionally make a three. And that's definitely something that Isaiah Roby brings to the table. He's a guy who's done that before, and he's not super old either. He's now 25 years old, so you can make an argument he could come in and he can do similar things. How large do you think that gap is between what Obi Toppin could bring to the table and what Isaiah Roby could be capable of doing?
I feel like there's a little bit of a gap, definitely, because what we saw from Obi when he was starting, he was averaging over 20 a game, so Obi definitely, I think, he's a better scorer than Isaiah Roby, but in the other areas, he might have him beat because Obi Toppin didn't have average many rebounds for us. I don't know the exact number, but wasn't it 3 or less than 3? So he didn't shine in that department, and he wasn't a great playmaker. Obi, he could get a bucket. In some games, he also could miss a lot. I think Isaiah Roby is a more where you're going to get from him. He's probably not going to shoot as many jump shots as Obi will, but he's also going to be someone that's trying to prove something. So when he plays, I expect him to go for 50-50 plays, hustle on every single rebound, set screens if that's what it takes. I'm not expecting him to be an Obi and average and shoot jump shots and be aggressive. I'm kind of expecting him to just kind of come in and just play a role. Sometimes that's what NBA players need to do, just play a role. I think Obi has potential, though, to be a starter with Indiana that could maybe average 20. Yeah, I don't know. Obi could be a great player. I still have a lot of respect for Obi, and I still want to see him be good, definitely. But I think, the gap, there's definitely a little bit of a gap, but it's not as big as we think.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard to know because Obi, even though he didn't get the minutes that he wanted, and when he was interviewed recently by the Indiana and New York press, he mentioned that, he gave love to the Knicks fans, to the organization, but he also mentioned he didn't get the minutes he wanted. And Isaiah Roby, he's gotten a chance here and there, but I think he's another guy who he's shown flashes, but he's never really been in a position to really shine and get those consistent minutes. It's not like he'll come to the Knicks and play 40 minutes a night. We know Julius Randle's spot is pretty secure, but to have that role, that solidified role as the backup power forward, if Isaiah Roby earns that, I think it'll be huge for him. Because I can't speak on what his experience was in OKC, but clearly they let him go. They didn't see enough in him to keep him for the long haul. But what I see on the surface from Isaiah Roby is a guy who in many ways is similar to Obi Toppin. He plays the same position. He's the same age as Obi Toppin. They both have similar skill sets. And for Isaiah Roby, I think it seems fair to say that he's a guy who hasn't, tapped into his full potential yet. And that's the kind of guy you want taking over that spot. We talked about JaMychal Green. JaMychal Green's a fine player, okay? But he's a veteran. He's been around. He's not going to improve on what his weaknesses are. Isaiah Roby, he may come in and get that boost from being around Tom Thibodeau, having a secure spot potentially in this rotation. And that might just take him to the next level. And when we're talking about why the Knicks were successful last year, a huge reason was their bench. I mean, would you say overall, like the bench on the Knicks last year had to be the number one reason that they were, a competent team?
100%. I mean, we had solid guys off the bench last year. Hart, Quick, Isaiah. Those three guys alone, it's a solid 8-man rotation with the starters we have. Like, that alone makes the playoffs any year. And I think and we had Obi. I forgot about Obi. We had Obi too. We had a really deep and good rotation last year. And those bench players, without them, we're probably in the play-in. I don't know, maybe not even in the play-in.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to the starters, to RJ, Julius, Jalen. Of course, we all know the impact Jalen had when he came to New York and what he did. We don't need to, go into that. But really, the reason the Knicks were winning the games is because they had as much depth as any other team around. Yeah, the Knicks lacked, the star power in their starting court, but the bench, it wasn't really a drop-off in quality, and many times we saw the bench played a more cohesive brand. They had more chemistry on the court together. Maybe there was a night where Julius or Jalen was struggling, or RJ was struggling, and Tom Thibodeau would bring in the bench, and they would perform a lot better. And, of course, Emmanuel quickly had a big thing to do with that, Obi Toppin, of course. But all I'm saying is that I think Isaiah Roby, he's a guy who's been largely slept on, and maybe he can come in and contribute almost to the point at which Obi was contributing, and that would be great to see. And I think we can both agree, he has the greatest chance of actually contributing to the Knicks at the NBA level over guys like Charlie Brown Jr., who's had his time, here and there in the NBA. He's had a cup of coffee with the Hawks. He was on the Thunder too. He was on the Mavericks. Last year, he spent some time with the Philadelphia 76ers organization. But he's a guard. He doesn't really have much of a bag, man. And Daquan Jeffries, a slightly more established version of him. But even Daquan Jeffries, for all the pros and all the praise we're giving him, I mean, that guard position's pretty set. Isaiah Roby clearly has the best chance. And one more guy I'd like to mention, he's kind of a mouthful, but I've noticed what he's done so far in the Summer League. Dmytro Skapenstev.
Yeah, don't ask me to pronounce that.
I don't even know if I pronounced his name right, because if you Google how to pronounce his name, you will not find a clear answer. So all I'm saying is Dmytro Skapenstev, he's a 7'1" center who has shot 9 of 15 through the first two games. I can't give you a full scouting report on what his defense is like, but I can tell you this is a guy who spent all of last season in the G League for the Knicks. And, he's one of those players where he has never had any NBA experience, so the Summer League is his chance to really show the NBA fans what he's all about, and he's impressed me. Yeah. And, maybe along the way, if something bad happens, hopefully not, but maybe, an injury happens, and injuries do happen. We'll see Scap and Stev, and he's certainly impressed me. He's still a young player.
Also, I want to bring something up. With the Summer League, it's not like any of these players are attached to our team. Like, they're open. Like, they're still free agents. So if another team saw him and wanted to pick him up, he might get a shot somewhere else. And that's really the main thing with the Summer League is. It's just to give these younger players, underlooked players, just an opportunity to get noticed and sign a two-way deal with, who knows? It could be Sacramento. You never know. But yeah, it would be cool to see him on the Knicks. I mean, I didn't see him on the court when I watched the Summer League. Now I'm thinking about it. I guess I got to tune in for Game 3 to find out about my boy.
Well,
I'm not going to say the name.
Scap and Stev played 16 minutes in Game 2, and he played about 13 minutes in Game 1. So even in the Summer League, man, he's not getting starting
it's a small
position
sample
minutes.
size.
It's a very small sample size. But I did want to show a little love for my boy Scap and Stev out there. He's grinding, he's hustling. Unfortunately, yeah, that's kind of how it is. Unfortunately for him, though, this center position, unlike the power forward position, you're not likely to be bringing a guy in who performed well in Summer League and have him actually have a spot on this roster. And that's what, brings us into the main bulk of this show, the meat and potatoes of episode 3 of the Knicks pod, and that is our analysis, the position profile for the center position on the New York Knicks, the number 5 position. We're going to look at the depth chart, player previews, player overviews, our thoughts on the depth compared to other teams in the Eastern Conference, and how the New York Knicks centers are looking to shape up for this upcoming 23-24 season. So first off, we got to start with everybody's favorite, Mitchell Robinson. Mitch coming in at 7 feet. We know that, 240 pounds. He's a big boy, and he's played like that in his first 5 seasons in the NBA. Connor, why don't you give me your raw thoughts on Mitchell Robinson as a player, what you like about him, what you don't like about him, because he's no Julius Randle in terms of the divisiveness, but I feel like when you talk to different Knicks fans, they'll always kind of give you a different take and a different perception on Mitchell Robinson as a player. So how do you view him?
Oh, well, I love Mitchell Robinson. I think he's a great player for us. I mean, he definitely has his strengths and weaknesses, and they're noticeable for sure. But, I mean, I'll start with some of his strengths. I mean, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA right now. Coming off last season, he averaged 1.8. That's ridiculous. That's really good. 9.4 rebounds a game as well. You'd like to see him get to 10, but the way Mitch is, he's always in foul trouble and stuff, so it's hard for him to get the minutes he deserves. But, I mean, he's close again. 9.4 still is really good, and only 7 points on the year. And that's somewhere where I really want to see Mitch improve. And I think he can improve. All you really think about Mitch right now is, he's going to block shots, he's going to be a defender, get rebounds. But offensively, what is he good for? Putback dunks, alley-oop dunks. This man he's not a three-point threat. And I think the last 3 years, he shot an under 50% from free throw. And I'm sorry, I know he's a bad shooter and all that, but that is ridiculous, bro. That literally loses us games sometimes. And it happened so many times last year, and I'm not just saying it was Mitch. It was actually everyone on the team. Even Jalen Brunson in the clutch would freaking miss free throws. I don't know what that was last season. I hope it was just a fluke with it, but yeah, Mitchell Robinson has proved he can't shoot free throws. It's gotten worse every single season. He started, in his career, rookie season, 60% from the line. Now, year, 5 he's in? He's 48%. You got to get a little better. And I've seen his highlight tapes in the summer. I don't know if you have, Josh. The way that man is moving, he looks like a 7-foot Steph Curry. And you're telling me he's not improving on the free throws? That's something I really want to see him improve. If there's nothing else he improves on, I hope it's free throws. Because let's say he brings that up to goddamn 65%. he's going to average a double-double for us. He would average 10 points. I'm very confident on that. He's averaging 7.4 right now. If he can make some more free throws, he could just be more of a complete player. But, I mean, besides that, Mitchell Robinson is hands down one of the best centers in the league. And we saw first round, he destroyed those Cavaliers. Like, he was taking on Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley all alone. He was doing great on the boards, great shot blocking. But yeah, for Mitchell Robinson, what you want to see from him is definitely scoring. Can he expand, get a mid-range even? Doesn't have to be a 3-point. A mid-range shot, or free throws would be nice. But overall, I really like Mitch, and yeah, he's a great player for us, and he's definitely going to be the starting center. I mean, we're paying him a lot of money, and he just brings more than like Isaiah or Jericho. I mean, his defense alone really stands out and brings him ahead.
I think defensively, he is clearly the best center on this team. Offensively, you kind of hit the nail on the head, broad stroke right there.
Yep.
Putbacks, even hook shots, he's kind of developed one. But the problem is, he loses you games. He can start for you, and he can block shots, he can provide elite defense, and that's a huge asset for the Knicks. And yeah, there's a lot of centers that are 7 feet who can block shots in the NBA, but really there's none who does it quite like Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson's a guy, you put him up against any big in the game outside of maybe Giannis, and you feel pretty good about your chances that he can limit the abilities of the player he's going up against. You even saw it in the playoff series. He held his own. He more than held his own against Bam Adebayo. And he's able to do that just about anybody. He's really impressive defensively, and coming into the league, when he was a rookie on that 2018-2019 team, that was before R.J. Barrett was on the Knicks. Okay, that was a dark time for the New York Knicks, and I'm not lying when I say this. Mitchell Robinson, at one point during his rookie year, was the main reason to watch the New York Knicks play basketball. So in that sense, man, how far have we come? Because now we're like saying, oh, he's a nice player, but we're talking about his flaws. And for as good as he is, I mean, he probably ranks like as the fourth best player on our starting rotation here with the Knicks. And at one point, he was the reason to watch. But here's one thing I have to say about him that really concerns me. You mentioned the free throw percentage. Mitch has never been a shooter, and he never will be. And you can watch all the videos you want during the summer. He is Exhibit A that shooting threes, shooting mid-ranges in an open court when you're just practicing is completely different from doing it during an NBA game. But the thing that concerns me is that he's actually regressed with his free throw shooting. Because his first and second year in the league, he was hitting well over 50% of his free throw shots. Not by a ton, but he was a 60% free throw shooter his rookie year, 57% his second year, and last year it's down to 48%. I mean, we're reaching Shaq levels. Except, no disrespect to Mitch, but he ain't no Shaquille O'Neal. So he can't make up for that with just his sheer size and power. He has a lot of size, he has a lot of power, but no one's going to mistake him for the great Shaquille O'Neal.
Dude, I just looked it up. Shaq shot 52% for his whole career.
Oh, well.
That's better.
Well, that's better than...
He's worse than Shaq.
He was worse last year. To be fair, his
God.
first 2 years in the league brings Mitch's career free throw percentage up to a whopping 530.
Wait, what's the career?
It's 529. So pretty much he's a 53% career free throw shooter. Yeah. But the past 3 years have all been under 50%. And that's what's extremely troubling. With a team like the Knicks, who's supposed to go to the playoffs and play in these big games, you hit the nail on the head. He is losing them games. So what would your solution be, assuming Mitchell Robinson doesn't have this drastic improvement that nobody expects at the free throw line? If you're Thibs, at the end of the game, are you leaving Mitchell Robinson in those situations? Because it killed them last year.
Basketball, you got to see how the game is going. It's like a flow game. If Mitchell Robinson is having a good game, if he has 5 blocks already and he's locking down their center, yeah, I might keep him in just because he's proven this game, it's his game. But let's say Mitch is, he's already got 4 fouls, started the fourth quarter. Yeah, I think maybe we plug in Isaiah there, even if he's just, he has bad games too. He's not every game he's going to be a great defender. He gets beat sometimes. So if he's like struggling on that department, then I think you go with Isaiah. I don't think he's. That's actually a really good point that you brought up because it's tough. I think it really just changes on the given night. It could be Isaiah, could be Mitch, just depending on the game plan and depending on the situation, I guess. It's a tough one, though, yeah.
I will say I don't want to bag on Mitchell Robinson too much because you mentioned his defense. And one of the main weaknesses, despite the fact that he's able to go up against just about any big in the league, is that he can get into foul trouble, and he's done it quite a lot. And while his free throw shot has not improved since his first couple years in the league, I believe Mitchell Robinson has improved, his tendencies to get himself into foul trouble. He still does it here and there, but it used to be almost a regular occurrence. Mm-hmm. And now, especially last season, seeing him in those big games, he made a conscious effort. You could tell, to not make 3 or 4 fouls in the first half of the game. He would generally get close. I understand being a huge guy like he is, it's a lot harder to not commit those fouls inside, and some players are really good at taking advantage of that. But Mitchell Robinson did a really good job, and I think it was a big reason why the Knicks turned things around last year in most nights staying out of egregious foul trouble.
Yeah.
Like, and when I mean egregious foul trouble, that's like he's at 4 fouls in the second quarter, and then you can't use him the rest of the game.
I swear, his first 2 seasons, it was like that every game. He was 4 fouls at the fourth. You're like, what are we doing? But he's getting better now.
He certainly is. And I want to talk a little bit about Isaiah Hartenstein because, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what I saw last year, Isaiah Hartenstein was a major upgrade over Nerlens Noel. And he clearly upgraded not just the Knicks team, but their entire center position, their depth chart. And perhaps, he made Mitchell Robinson a better player for it. Do you think there's something to that, having a guy like Isaiah with a similar skill set coming in and perhaps making Mitchell Robinson a better player?
I think so, because he definitely helped him. I mean, it's hard because it's not like he's a point guard going to... Actually, I think Jalen Brunson helped him. I think Jalen Brunson helped Mitchell Robinson become a better player. Just because, Jalen Brunson's the leader of this team, in my opinion, and he's going to set guys up. This is what point guards do. They set guys up in the right spots, tell them what they need to do. And I think, I don't know what goes on in the locker room and stuff, but I think he was helping Mitch out with that. But I definitely do think Isaiah... I think he adds something special to the Knicks because he's more versatile than what Nerlens Noel was. What we had with Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson, they're basically the same fucking player. Like, you look at him, Nerlens Noel was someone that would block shots for you, not get rebounds, and he couldn't catch the ball. That was one of my biggest pet peeves with him. But Isaiah Hartenstein, this man's the Jokic of the East. No, I'm just kidding. He's not, but that's what people like to say. And I think, he's a good playmaker. His assist numbers were way down this year. I don't know why. I think his assist numbers were only 1.2 compared to 2.5 he was putting up. So you'd like to see that go up, but it's not all about passing it to the guy that's going to score. He makes the right play, and that's what I like about him. And the one thing I do want to see from him is his shooting increase a little bit. But I think, Isaiah Hartenstein brings a lot to this team. And it's a different player than what we're used to with Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson. He brings just a little more. Just a little more.
Yeah, and I think the unsung attribute that Isaiah Hartenstein brought to the team last year was stability. Yeah. Mitchell Robinson has been a guy who throughout his career has had trouble staying healthy, and last year he played in 59 games, Mitchell Robinson did. But Isaiah Hartenstein, he played all 82, and he made 8 starts. Wow. And his defense was really good, and you mentioned Nerlens Noel.
He's a player to do that.
Yeah, Hartenstein has a different skill set from Nerlens. Nerlens is more your prototypical center, rim protector, and Isaiah can do that too. But I think Isaiah... his defense improved from where it was earlier in his career last year. That defensively was the best version of the NBA Isaiah Hartenstein that we have seen. And with regards to his passing, his assist numbers were down a little bit, but, he made a lot of those plays that don't show up in the box score. Isaiah Hartenstein did. even though maybe the assist numbers weren't there, even though he averaged the most assists of all three main Knicks centers last year, he made a lot of good off-ball decisions, which you don't necessarily expect to see or really need to have from your center. But the fact that he made those plays added a lot to the flow, and I think he was a big reason why the bench would come in and perform so seamlessly and so cohesively.
And one thing I want to bring out is with Isaiah Hartenstein, he averaged 6.5 rebounds, but 2.5 of those are offensive rebounds. And that's one thing I saw in the games last season is he would give us a second chance. Like, you just see him crashing, kicking out for another shot, and that's what you need in the NBA sometimes, a second chance, another offensive rebound to keep the possession going.
And he's got good hands, man. I mean, you need good hands. Nerlens did not have good hands. He could provide on defense, bro, but everybody would roast him, deservedly so, because he had...
catch a oop.
Bro, it was painful to watch. And Isaiah definitely came in and did that. And I think that the best thing is really, you saw in the 8 games that Isaiah started when Mitchell Robinson was hurt, he wasn't really much of a downgrade at all, because the offensive rebounds are there. The passing is better than whatever Mitchell Robinson does because he doesn't really have the ball in his hands much. Isaiah, you can feel a little more comfortable with the ball in his hands at times when need be to make that off-ball play, to make the right decisions passing the ball, and then it just spaces the floor better. The 2.5 offensive rebounds in just under 20 minutes a game is extremely impressive, and it's even more impressive and beneficial to the Knicks when you have him playing alongside Mitch, who's also a great offensive rebounder, because Mitch is averaging almost half of his rebounds on the offensive side of the ball. And, you don't need me to tell you just how valuable that is, especially for the Knicks, who are not essentially a great shooting team. To have all those second chance points, it leads to W's. It doesn't necessarily require them to have some lights out shooting, which they didn't possess last year. So Isaiah, I think, was a great addition. When you're talking about the biggest reasons why the Knicks made that jump last year, I think Isaiah Hartenstein has to be high up on that list. He doesn't get the same attention that Jalen Brunson does, and of course Jalen was the biggest reason, but Isaiah was probably like 2 or 3, man. He was really, really great. And finally, number 3, the main center on the Knicks, the third main center on the Knicks, is 2021 second-round pick Jericho Sims. How are you feeling about him? Because we've seen Leon Rose's front office. They've done pretty well with their second-round picks, although Trevor Keels is looking freaking terrible in Summer League. But outside of that, Jericho Sims, another solid second-round pick by this front office. So how do you feel about him, and what's his ceiling at? How much room is there for him to grow, and will he have the chance to make that jump, to make that growth?
To be honest, I don't know if there's a lot to talk about with Jericho. I mean, looking at him, what did he play in this season? He played 52 games for us. That's actually very good. I was a little surprised to read that. I thought it was way less. Giving us 15 minutes a game, so he's honestly playing solid minutes for us with that. It's not like he's just riding the bench. But look at his numbers, dude. 3.4 points with 4 rebounds, which is nice. 4.7 rebounds, but I think that's it with him. What else? He's not a good defender. We've seen him at times just get bullied in the post. He might be bigger than some dude, and he'll still find a way to get scored on in the post. So he doesn't have what Mitchell Robinson has, which is a good rebounder, good shot blocker, defensive anchor. He's not going to be that. What he is super athletic. That man can jump out the gym. I'm mad he lost the dunk contest. Not going to lie, it was terrible. The envelope dunk, that was terrible. But overall, as a player, I don't know. I mean, I guess we still haven't seen enough yet. He's still going into his 3rd year, so things could happen. You could see improvement. But the man, I looked it up earlier today, the man has shot 1 3-pointer his whole entire career. So, he's not shooting. His free throw numbers, he averaged 75% last season.
Yeah, but that's on 6 shots?
Yeah, honestly, I don't even think it's a good, So, you can't judge it off that. The season prior, 41%. So I think that's where we're more at. He's more like on Mitchell Robinson numbers, I think. But overall, I don't know what Jericho really brings besides a couple rebounds, a couple of dunks. I guess that's my take on Jericho. I want to see more, and I still think he could make a stride here, but as of now, I don't really see him doing too much.
Well, compared to the other two guys above him on this depth chart, there's no doubt Jericho's got the most, he's got the beefiest build of all of them. So that's why it's a little surprising when you see him get bullied. I understand NBA is in college and, he's making that adjustment. But, Isaiah is at 7 feet and 250 and Mitch is at, 7 feet 240. Jericho Sims, he's 6'10", but he's 245, so he's got a little more muscle on him. And you mentioned the athleticism. He was in the dunk contest, and I gotta say, I did not need to be humiliated like I was on that night. I think he embarrassed Knicks fans everywhere with that performance. I don't want to roast him too hard because I get it's all in good fun, but man, the envelope thing, that was about as cringy of an act as I've ever seen, dude. And you could tell watching him, he was just... He was like embarrassed. He's like, okay, I guess I have to open the envelope after the dunk because it's part of his act. But you could tell he was like, damn, the people are not going to like this, and he did it anyways.
The start of the dunk was trash. He just did a good old, what was it, the elbow dunk?
The whole 10 in the envelope. Oh, just awful.
Did he have trouble opening the envelope too?
He did. The opening, the whole thing was just a complete mess.
It was,
And Jericho, if you're listening, which you're probably not, but if you are, don't do the dunk contest. Please don't do the dunk contest. Let us just bask in the glory of Obi Toppin's 2021 win, and we'll just celebrate that, and then we'll pretend to forget whatever the hell that was that you did last year in the dunk contest.
No more
but,
for him.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go, and I wonder, if the Knicks open the season, hopefully with both Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein healthy, do you consider letting Jericho go down to the G League maybe for a little while and maybe develop? Because he's really not going to get a lot of minutes on this team. But as you saw last year, to the injury to Mitch, he comes in and all of a sudden he's playing significant minutes. He made 16 starts. And I don't know. It's a question of what's the best thing for Jericho Sims' career. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think the G League could hurt him, really. You look at it, he played 52 games for us, though, so...
Tibbs likes him.
Yeah, he's gonna... It seems like he's gonna be a player that's gonna play every, maybe every other game for us. But, yeah, he's not gonna be the backup starting center, or the starting center, the backup center. He's the third center. He's the third string center for us. So he's only gonna really see time with injuries. And that's why we gotta keep him, though. And that's why... I think the G League could be good for him because, maybe in the games where he's not playing, you just let him run in the G League. It's just extra playing time. It can't really hurt him. And then, Mitchell Robinson, I don't want to, jinx it, but looking the way his career has been, he's most likely going to miss a couple of games for us this season. So that's where Jericho gets called up and plays. I just don't think it could hurt him. Maybe it hurts his confidence, though, getting sent back to the G League. That might fuck someone's confidence up, but I don't think it could hurt his game. He's just going to get extra run. But, yeah, I think that's something that they're going to just have to see what happens. I think at the start of the season, maybe they should do it. But with injuries and the way the season goes, he might need to be on this team full time. Yeah,
look, in theory, I think it's perhaps wise to put him in the G League, but let's be honest, they're not going to do that. It's worthy of discussion perhaps, but they're not going to do that. Tibbs likes him, and as you mentioned, you don't want to predict injuries, but you got to be real with yourself when you look at this roster, and when you look at most centers in general in the NBA, they tend to miss at least 10 or 15 games for whatever reason, and that's what makes Jericho Sims pretty valuable, and he is the third best center of this roster. I don't think that's really something that's up for debate. But I do have one question I want to ask you. Let's say you're in a close game and you have Mitch in and we know what he's like at the free throw line. I know you said you want to still start Mitch over Hartenstein because Mitch provides probably more defensively, and that's something that not a lot of centers possess. But if you're in a close game late, are you thinking about, putting Hartenstein over Mitchell Robinson to prevent other teams, specifically like what the Heat tried to do last year, which was just send Mitchell Robinson up to the line repeatedly.
Hack a shot or whatever.
Would you consider doing that, or do you just lose too much defensively to consider that on a consistent basis.
Kind of what I talked about earlier, just kind of dependent on how the game is going. But if we're just like gonna base it off, like, yeah, is Isaiah the better person to go with down late for the majority of the season? You look at it, he could be. Yeah, he's a much more reliable free throw shooter and just overall shooter. And he's a good passer too, so it's not like the team, like the offense would be like messed up or anything when he's on the court. Like, if anything, the offense gets better with him on the court. So, I mean, defensively, he could still hold his own. He, last season, he actually he held his opponents to 47% shooting. So, I mean, that's no Mitchell Robinson. I think Mitchell Robinson held his opponents to 29% shooting. So, yeah, Mitchell Robinson's definitely, he's a much better defender, but I don't think that's crazy. That's not a huge gap, or it could be a huge gap. I guess I'm not in that department with the analytics and stuff, but to me, I think that's 47%. I think he could hold his own playing defensively, and if it's only going to be for 2 minutes, yeah, why not? I think that's just something that, back to my point, you're just going to have to see how the game is going. Because Isaiah Hartenstein, he's not going to start over Mitch, and we're paying Mitch all this money, so
yeah,
you'd like to see Mitch play, but that's a tough, dude. Like I'm saying, that's a tough one to answer.
It is a tough one to answer, and it's a multifaceted question too, because you have to consider the foul trouble. That's always something to consider with those guys, and you have to consider the matchup too. Maybe Hartenstein can hold his own against one player, but maybe he can't against another. And that'll lead me to my final question of discussion regarding the position profile of centers on the Knicks, and that is, how do you think the center depth chart on the Knicks stacks up against the rest of the Eastern Conference? Would you say the Knicks have one of the better, center groups, center depth charts, or do you think they're closer towards the bottom?
We're definitely not closer to the bottom, but we're not at the top, because you look at guys, you got like Joel. If we had, like, him alone makes that whole backcourt or front court better than us. So, and then if we're just looking strictly at centers, yeah, there's a lot of it's not a lot of centers I would take, but I mean, we have good guys, but we don't really have a star center. Mitchell Robinson's a good center, but he's not like Karl Anthony Towns, Jokic, or what's his name, Embiid. But I think we're right there. I'd say maybe like 5 or 6. I'm just trying to think of who I would take over. Do you have anyone that you take over, or like that that you take over right away?
Well, obviously you mentioned Philadelphia, Milwaukee. I think Boston. Boston's. I think it's close. Maybe New York has the edge there, but I think the big
they just got Porzingis. So
But Porzingis isn't going to bring the defense. He's going to bring the offense. I think the good part about the Knicks depth chart compared to most others is there is a lot of defense there. Even when you go to your bench, there's a lot of solid depth. All three guys, well, maybe not Jericho, but Isaiah, you're not losing that much defensively. And they have a solid option on the bench. Mitchell Robinson is probably right around the middle of the pack in Eastern Conference starting centers. But one thing that may bump New York up to maybe 6 or 7 in the overall center depth chart standings is that they have 2 viable guys that are starting quality centers who you'd like to think are ascending players, as they're both in their mid-20s now, and 2 guys that can really go up against just about any other player and do it with some sense of competence. So I feel pretty good about the center position on the Knicks. I think it's a question of how much better is Mitchell Robinson going to get? How high is his ceiling? I think that's a really good question, because he's kind of been about the same kind of player. He's made some strides defensively and with his navigating of his foul trouble, but I don't know if he's going to get that much better. With Isaiah Hartenstein, he's a really good player, but again, he's only been here a year. I think it's tough to say how much better he's going to get as well. But overall, I'd say 6 or 7 is probably around where the Knicks lie, in the grand scheme of things in the Eastern Conference. So that'll just about do it for our position profile. We'll be doing one on the point guards, shooting guards, and the forward position in the future episodes. But for now, I'd like to turn our attention to one last bit of NBA news that came out this week, and that was Adam Silver and the NBA announced that the in-season tournament, it's not a dream anymore. It's not just an idea. This thing is actually happening, and it's happening this November, this season, the NBA Cup. Each league is going to be divided into groups